Just weeks shy of the ANC's 55th National Elective Conference, ANC National Executive Committee member Lindiwe Sisulu addressed a number of issues affecting the party. Now, she sat down with SABC News' political editor Mzwandile Mbeje to discuss, among other things, the country's ailing infrastructure, Eskom, and the ANC's step-aside rule.
A very good evening to everyone. We are speaking to the Minister of Tourism and, of course, the NEC member of the governing party, the ANC. We're coming from you from Durban, where she's been attending a number of activities. In fact, one of those important ones was yesterday's when the handing over of the certificate was done to King Sisulu Kazwelithini. But of course, her portfolio is very important, particularly around this time and in this part of the world, because people are going to start to flock into the beaches and try and have some nice time. But let's find out if she has plans to capitalize on the festive season that is coming.
Well, the first thing we did was to capitalize on the, if I would call it, the coronation of the king, because we used the opportunity of the dinner to put our adverts out there so that people who'd come to rejoice with us at the coronation of the king will also know that we have more than a king to offer. We have beautiful beaches, we have beautiful tourist ties, and we will continue. We will now concentrate on trying to get as much as we can out of the festive season. As you know, South Africa boasts one of the most beautiful sites ever. We were affected by COVID, seriously affected by COVID, and we are going to use this period to try and recover.
How has been the recovery, Minister? Because it was really devastating.
No, I mean the COVID was devastating,
yeah.
But the recovery has been very good. It indicated to us from the people who were coming into South Africa that you know, they were raring to go out and have a good time somewhere, and we're working on that. You will be seeing a lot of our adverts on television. You'll be seeing a lot of our activities, because we want to make sure that we can continue to contribute as much as we do to the GDP of the country, and also to just sell our country for so many other things, for its wine, for its beauty, for its music, you name it. Absolutely. It rests with us, yes.
Yes. But there's been a concern. In fact, people would say easier said than done, particularly in this area, KZN.
Yes.
So that there is a problem with, I think, the eco-line, so the sewage system may have flowed into the sea.
Yes.
And then that may pose, yeah.
We are putting together teams to clean up our beaches and to do something about the E. coli in the water. So that by the time that we are ready to receive our visitors, we've cleared the matter. That falls outside of the scope of tourism, obviously, so we will be working together.
But it affects your department.
It affects our department very badly, so we will be working together with those departments that are responsible. But we have teams that are put together to clean up the beaches and make sure that all of these matters are attended to, because ultimately we are the ones who either suffer when something is wrong, or we succeed because we have the cleanest beaches, we have everything to offer: sunshine, beautiful weather, music, smiling you sometimes.
Yeah, I love the sometimes part. Minister, but there's been also a complaint from certain quarters that the government is very slow, for example, in cleaning, in repairing the infrastructure, particularly after the devastating floods that took place here.
You know, when we had the floods around the year 2000 that affected ourselves and affected Mozambique, government put together, it was the government under Mr. President Mbeki, government put together a team of people, and we established a command center. I was the head of that command center, and we dealt with the cleaning up and repairing bridges and all of those things. So we do have the experience of cleaning up and repairing after disasters such as we've had, just that we haven't put it in place. And now that you ask me, I do know we have an answer. So I'll propose that answer, at least starting with my own department. There needs to be somewhere where we can collect all the information and make sure that we can deal with those matters. I will invite all of those ministers that affect my industry, transport, water, sanitation, you name it, so that we can come into a collective to ensure that we are clearing all the problems that we have. And the biggest one, of course, right now being the availability of flights and the cost of flights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will be attending to that soon.
Yes, I think it's a big issue.
It is a big issue.
And yeah, it's quite interesting that somehow
our minds meet.
It's been allowed to happen. And you know the most interesting part, Minister, it's not that you'll blame perhaps new people who have come in and changed everything. So we've been on the same since '94.
Yeah.
So I wonder where the problem is.
I think we should learn to learn from the past. It's happened before. Yes. How did we solve it? And we solved it in 3 months flat.
Yes.
I think it's just a matter of the humility to learn from how others solve the same problem.
In fact, talking about those issues, it also goes back to, I think, infrastructure. Yes. You know, you and I were at Moses Mabhida yesterday,
yes.
And then when you looked over there, you could see the trains just stationary. They are not moving.
Yes.
And this government inherited a fully functioning system in terms of trains and everything else. I'm just making that as an example.
Yes.
So what happened to you? By you, I don't single you as a person, but to you as government of the ANC, why did you allow the infrastructure to collapse just like this?
Well, when I first noticed as a minister that the infrastructure was falling apart was in an environment that I was responsible for, where I found, I was Minister of Human Settlements, where I found my people putting up their shacks on railway lines. And I immediately called the Minister of Transport. I said, this is crazy. We can't go on like this. And he indicated to me that they were dealing with the matter. Because I felt that if we put up a fence to protect the railway lines, we would not have the deterioration of the railway lines. He had a plan, and I think his plan was to introduce a new mode of transport. So that which was old and decaying, he wasn't so concerned about. But between he and I, we have been concerned about the encroachment of human settlements into railway lines, making them, some of them in Cape Town, almost completely dysfunctional. The deterioration of infrastructure was bound to happen after so many years of governance. I don't know if we would advise the next government to do the same as we have done. There needs to be a department that deals with ensuring that things are looked after, like my facilities in the hotel industry. There will be somebody who's making sure that the cleaning is done properly and everything is a supervisor. So I think that we need to find a way in which the government has an additional responsibility to ensure that, you know, all of those things that are a monitoring device. It was proposed in the 2020 annual review of government, a monitoring department or monitoring method. But what is monitored is the performance on paper as opposed to on the ground. But if we could make sure we change that to monitoring on the ground, then I think we will be getting our bearing straight.
You know, I think you saying it so well. But I think someone sitting out there would ask himself or herself, the minister speaks like all of us, but the minister has had the advantage through her party of being in government when all these things were happening. What went wrong, Minister, in the government of the ANC that you've been part of? that you are a senior member of. So why has the infrastructure collapsed? I'm talking now general infrastructure. In fact, we'll move on to Eskom quickly.
Yeah.
What went wrong? Who are you blaming for this?
Well, I don't know if in my position I should be blaming anybody, but I do agree that infrastructure is collapsing. It's everybody's concern. I don't know if the people who are out there listening to us would take any of the things we're saying, because we've always convinced them we're looking into it, Eskom is a real problem. We are under the kind of load shedding we've never experienced before. We could go on and on, but it would be like self-flagellation, hitting myself on my back for something that we should have done. But I think that I can say that there are ways in which we could solve these matters. There are ways going into the future, having learned of the problems that we have right now. I think that there is time for change in the way we do things, change in the way that we are accountable to our people, change in so many ways in which right now you're pointing out to me. And these will be hopefully taken into account when we review. We're going into a conference now. And in the conference, we will have the opportunity to review if our policies that we have gone through in the policy conference are working, and what it is that we need to do going forward. The conference will include a section that deals with resolutions, and those resolutions are the resolutions that we take that will help us get over some of the problems we've experienced.
You know, the advantage that I have, perhaps as one of the senior reporters in the industry, is that I've had this kind of talk for the longest of times. Every time there would be a conference, not necessarily you, but some of your colleagues. When you ask these kinds of questions, they would answer in that fashion. Yes. Clearly, is the ANC?
I agree. Things must change. Yes. They will change.
But it's the same people, Minister, that have been governing the ANC, and things are not changing. That it's going to be 30 years.
Things will change. Things will change, so that you don't ask me that question ever again. But in some cases, let me make an example. In some cases, we take resolutions as government, and those resolutions have repercussions where perhaps the top layer of our organization is averse to. I want to make an example. We took a resolution in 2017 that we would downgrade the Israeli embassy into an ordinary office, liaison office. In line with all the responsibilities I had, I executed them almost immediately. I felt very punished by the government standing back when the Jewish community was complaining, because I indeed did downgrade the Israeli embassy into a liaison officer in line with the resolutions. My own government did not come up to support me. The Jewish community was livid, and they made their views very, very well known, knowing very well too that it was a resolution of conference. So I do have the scars of what you're talking about, where a resolution is made and it is not carried through. That is why I was indicating to you that we have a monitoring policy, but it is not a monitoring by people and following through.
Okay. You said you felt very punished.
Yes, I mean the Jewish...
Punished by who?
I felt very punished by the Jewish community and the ANC. Nobody stood up to say that was our resolution. We confirmed it in conference. The Israeli representatives in the country felt very aggrieved. They made their grievances very known. I was very publicly humiliated in their newspapers. They asked to have a meeting with me. I agreed. I thought we had a very good meeting. We took pictures, and on one of the pictures, it turns out that one of them had put horns on my... So I felt that these are the people who are not taking our government seriously, nor the decisions that we take.
But Minister, you serve in the administration led by a president.
Yes.
Did you raise this matter with the president at the time?
I expected him to come to my rescue. It was a public matter everybody could see. And I would have expected that he would say, look, this is my minister. and I am going to protect the resolutions of government, of the NEC conference. I was left dangling alone.
Are you saying to me the president just kept quiet?
The president kept quiet.
But as someone who's serving there and who was being attacked, did you say, Mr. President, I'm under pressure, say something?
Do I need to tell you you're sitting down?
I'm listening.
You're sitting down. I don't have to tell you that you're sitting down. There's certain things that are just obvious. You don't need to repeat them. And it wasn't just the president, the whole of the ANC.
Yeah,
I don't remember that the ANC stood up and said that was our resolution that the minister is carrying through. Instead, I think a few months after that, the president felt it necessary to change me to another portfolio. That's fine for me, but the resolution remains there.
Well, is that, did you then suspect that the president was changing you because you were standing firm on the resolution?
It happened very soon thereafter, and I don't know of any other reason why it would have happened that way.
So the inference is that you were changed because of that? The
inference is that I think that he felt that he needed to have a better relationship with the Jewish community, which is understandable, and that my execution of the resolution of the NEC conference could have been kept in abeyance. That's my only suspicion. But when there is a reshuffle, you don't sit down and say, by the way, why did you do that? Maybe one day I will ask.
But why? Okay, I know you don't ask because you save at his pleasure. But why do you think he would do that when there is an ANC resolution?
I haven't asked him. I haven't had the opportunity to ask him.
But you sit with him in cabinet. Not even in cabinet. I'm sure you bumped into him yesterday. You can ask all these questions.
No, there's certain things you just don't feel you want to demean yourself to that level. Why should I ask? He has complete authority over every minister. Where he puts them is at his discretion, and he has every right to do whatever he wants to do with people he has appointed.
Yeah. Well, Minister, I think there's something as you and I are engaging, which I find very interesting. I am getting a sense, I could be wrong, I'm getting a sense that you are a bit frustrated by some of your leadership, not necessarily one individual, but your leadership not really implementing the resolutions as directed by the ANC, which I suspect could be the reason some of the things are not being done, and we've just spoken about the decay in the infrastructure right now.
Well, some resolutions have been taken up, I think, opportunistically very quickly, like the step aside.
Yes.
There was no time wasted and the step aside resolution was implemented. But most of the other resolutions have not quite been as hastily implemented. But we'll put that aside. You've also got to understand that in government we're dealing with, it's a political space.
Yes.
And it's a political playing field. So we've got to be quite certain what we're talking about. Are we talking about the governance issue, or are we talking about the political issue? Because if we're talking about the political issue, there might be political reasons why the president would emphasize one area that affects the government, or as opposed to another area that affects the government. But that is entirely at his discretion.
Absolutely, I understand that. You've just brought up the step aside issue.
Yes.
So what's your view on it, by the way?
My view on it is that when we put the step aside resolution, I don't think that we had seen it through to its end. I don't think we'd paid as much attention to it as we should have, because we are now prejudging a case that is before the courts and sentencing somebody for what we think is a wrongdoing. And it only applies to certain people. There are so many things that have gone wrong in the ANC, and the step-aside resolution has not come into effect, because by its very definition is after you have been charged. There are very many cases that are there outstanding that have not come before the courts for any one reason or another, and therefore there are some people who will be subjected to a step-aside resolution, and there are some who will not, because the case has not matured to get to the courts. And I'm hoping that we will get back to this step-aside resolution and see that it applies across the board. and we will have a mechanism of deciding at what point all of us will have a point at which we decide that we believe that this now must kick in. Relying on the courts, it means relying also on the preparedness of the people who are preparing the case.
Yeah, but I hear you explaining how it works.
Yeah.
So, but do you believe it should stand, it should go?
I believe it should stand. It has a reason to stand, but I think that it should not be selectively applied.
So
let's move on. Let's move on.
No, that's fine, Minister. You know what I want?
Yes.
I don't want to be left confused. I want to be very, very clear.
Yeah. Okay,
but
I think
I'm asking like this because I'm speaking to you. You're a very senior member of the ANC. I mean, your track record is absolutely unquestioned. But if you bemoan something happening in your party, like ordinary members, I just get a bit confused. Who makes these decisions that you as a senior member are also uncomfortable with?
No. I'm not uncomfortable with the decisions or the resolution. I'm uncomfortable with its application. I'm uncomfortable with the way that it is applied. And I would propose, as we go into the next conference, that anybody that we believe has serious accusations to answer for would be required to step aside. For instance, the Pala issue for me, the Pala issue for me would call for that. Until all of us are quite certain that there is nothing wrong, nothing illegal about that. But for as long as it keeps hanging on the president, it keeps hanging on everybody else. It's not fair to us. I don't think it's fair to him either.
In fact, that brings me to the next question. I think former President Mbeki last week basically said there's a panel that we know is looking into this matter. What if it says there's a case to answer? And then he posed the question to say, has the NEC discussed it? Has it discussed it?
No, it hasn't.
Why?
Comrade Mbeki was very right. He was probably representing all the old oldies in the ANC. I've been in the ANC since I was born, so that is a culture that I know. When there is an issue of that nature, it is discussed, and the person who is affected, depending on what the effects are on the table, would be asked to step aside.
But have you raised that in the NEC? You are the member of the NEC? Very senior?
I'm a member of the NEC. It has not been put on the agenda of the NEC.
Have you put it on yourself?
I will do so right away now that you ask it.
When is your next NEC so that I can hold you to that, Minister?
Okay, fine. I will check as soon as this meeting is over. I will check. You see, the reason why we've got to be consistent is that society should see us as consistent. Society should see us as being very serious about things that are not going right, so that we go to them in the next election and they trust us. We've got to have the trust of the people. Otherwise, we keep talking and saying things that we think are good to be said, and we get to the ground and we have not covered the ground that we should have covered, and yet we want their vote. We need their vote. The ANC needs this vote to continue to bring about the change that we've been promising our people for so long.
In fact, you've been, even at the beginning, you've been speaking about change, and you said to me, change will happen. You've highlighted some of the issues that you are very uncomfortable with in the ANC now. I know, as a reporter, I know that as the nominations are happening, so I've seen some areas where I think your name also comes up. So will you accept, should they say, Ms. Sisulu, we want you to lead?
Well, you know, there is a process which is a very good process where we do have what we'd call in other countries primaries, where people do the necessary nominations. If I reach the threshold, and obviously I will agree, because it's not the first time that I would be standing. I stood in 2017 on very solid principles that I thought would take the country forward. But unfortunately, I didn't make quite the numbers that were necessary. The president asked me to come and join his party. I went to join his party. I mean, his side of
I know what I mean,
yes, you know what I mean. So I ran alongside that. I am still running, in the sense that I have allowed people to nominate me, and the threshold will determine. If the threshold determines, of course I am running, because I believe that we should be somewhere else in this country by this government than where we are. I was born into the ANC. grown up in an ANC that had set standards which are daily being, eroded. And I don't know how I would. There's a song that we used to sing in Umkhonto weSizwe.
Yeah.
And it says, when we get to Tambo, what are we going to say we did? I don't know what I would say we did if I got to hell or heaven when I died about this ANC that has been left in our hands. So many people have given so much for this organization. So many people have given so much in faith that we will carry through what we promised. And I don't know how many times we have actually reflected on the fact that this ANC doesn't belong to anybody, doesn't belong to us. It belongs to everybody who's given their life for the ANC and everybody else who votes for the ANC.
Currently, it's being led by President Ramaphosa, and I've also seen that there are nominations for him. Mm-hmm. Actually, I think he does seem to be leading. I know it's not final.
I hope it's not from financial inducement. That's another thing I want to.
Oh, no, it's
okay.
Actually, it's not financial inducements.
Yes.
What is that supposed to mean,
I
Minister?
hope that these are not people who are given money to vote in a particular way. That is something that in this particular conference that we're going to, we need to take a resolution on. How do we fund people who are standing? Tokyo once said, and I repeated this, and he repeated it himself, that the 2017 election was bought. We can't, having fought all these years, all these people who have died for liberated South Africa, be in a situation where a conference is bought. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. There are other ways in which we can do it that do not involve money. The money that is being used to pay for people or buy people or whatever it is that it is used for could be used to build more houses. It could be used to improve our infrastructure.
Mrs. Sisulu, I need to understand you very well. Are you saying those supporting the president are using money for him to be elected?
No. I am saying we've got to stop the use of money. And I am saying Tokyo Sexwale is on record saying that the person who won finally the 2017 election was won on money. So the person who has a bigger purse has a bigger opportunity of ascending. It's no longer about the values of the ANC, it is about how much money people have to ensure that their name appears on the ballot and that they succeed. That's wrong.
So are you saying President Ramaphosa won on money last time by using money?
I am saying Tokyo Sexwale is on record saying that.
What are you saying yourself?
I'm saying if that is the view, then we've got to stop it. We are a moral organization. We're not about buying people. We're not about paying people. And if that is the way, then we should stop it. And I know of countries that have gone a different route of electing presidents than the route that we are using now. The route we're using is wrong because the bigger the pocket, from what it seems, the bigger the opportunity. And that is a fact. And it is not, therefore, allowing people to choose the best person that they would want in a particular position. It is how much resources that particular person has to push a particular campaign and a particular agenda.
Should he get re-elected, would you still be comfortable to work in his cabinet? I will tell you why I'm asking this. I know you're currently working in his cabinet. You have really said things that you are very uncomfortable with in how perhaps even the country and the ANC is being run. So if he gets re-elected, he's at the head. As much as all of you take collective responsibility, but he's the face of the party. Will you be comfortable to work?
Well, I have had the opportunity in NEC to say, let's change the way we run our elections. There are other countries that run their elections in a way that shows that there is democracy in that country. One of them is Mozambique. Nobody in Mozambique, no president in Mozambique has spent a cent on their campaign. It is the party that runs the campaign. What the party does is to say to possible contenders, raise your hand, and when you raise your hand, we, the party, will run the campaign. Therefore, we are all standing on equal platform, and the people look at us and are able to interact with us, and they choose the best possible candidate, which has nothing to do with money. Money sullies anything that it is associated with, and I don't want it for the ANC.
My question remains. should he get re-elected, will you serve in his cabinet?
I don't know. I really don't know right now. I don't know. That's how strongly I feel.
I mean, as a child of the ANC, there's a sense I'm getting of betrayal. I know I may be perhaps putting it a bit more harshly.
Well, you know, when I grew up, it was a time at which the ANC was going around to all the communities, collecting from the people themselves what kind of country they would like to see the ANC, you know, putting forward to them to accept. And every household indicated what they wanted in written form, in spoken form, and this became what we call the Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter was born out of a realization that there is a particular need for people to express themselves, and that should be the guiding principle for all of us in the ANC. There is no mention of money in the Freedom Charter. Of course, there might not even be a mention of the selection system, but the selection system that we had in exile was one which we found acceptable, where the elders who were not contesting were able to say, I propose these candidates on these bases, and it is debated, and that becomes the leadership of the NEC. In this case, money does play a great deal of importance. It diminishes the stature of the ANC. The ANC is everything that all of us fought for. I don't know how many people died for this ANC. They didn't die for money.
Let's talk about load shedding. That's a problem.
Let's talk about load shedding, yes. Why are you running away from money?
No, I'm not running away from money, Minister.
Right. Let's talk about load shedding.
Okay,
yes.
Let's talk about load shedding, and saying on the load shedding, people have been complaining that the CEO needs to step down. What are you saying?
I think that there is more to be done than the CEO stepping down. I will not enter into the fray of personalizing a problem. That problem we have seen coming a long way, and that problem we chose to have other options than concentrating on how do we improve this. When Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa got into cabinet, one of his main responsibilities was to put up a war room. So that's how far back we have gone in dealing with the issue of energy and Eskom. And he was the head of the war room in Eskom, and we called it a war room because we wanted quick results. It has deteriorated over time. Over time, to the extent that actually this is one of the issues that the electorate is going to punish us for. And we don't need that. We could have solved Eskom. We could have solved Eskom. By the time we have a war room, a war room's responsibility is to solve the problem.
Do you blame the person who was taking the responsibility?
No.
Okay.
I blame the system in which allowed that to continue to happen. We should have from time to time been receiving reports that we can put into place and make sure that they work. This has been going on far too long. The level of electricity outages is indicative of an economy that is not going very well. I mean, there are certain things that you use as indices of whether an economy is performing, and one of them is the amount of electricity it has. You know, I trained in what is called the Soviet in Russia now. It was the Soviet Union, and across the road from where I lived was something that lit up a slogan that lit up every night, and it said, "Socialism is the electrification of the entire country." And I didn't understand why socialism had to do with electrification. But electrification is a driver of most of the things that modern society lives on. Now I understand it. Much later I understand it. And I think that we should find a slogan too that talks about electricity is vital for a modern economy such as ours. And therefore, success is the electrification of the whole country. Success is ensuring that that electricity supply is constant.
There's a view by others, true or not, who are saying actually the state-owned enterprises are being deliberately
They are.
damaged.
I don't know if they're being deliberately damaged, but they're not being given the attention that state-owned enterprises should be given, and accounting. We should not discover much later the problems that we have in Eskom after we'd had a war room, after we'd had one of the most senior people in cabinet dealing with the war room. We should not be having what we have. So
in short, those people, in your view, are not fit to lead because they failed, in your view.
You're putting words in my mouth, and I'm very willing to accept that. That is fine with me. Okay. But if we're using a measurement, we all have responsibilities. My responsibility was building houses. I'm glad to say that we've built more houses in this country during that time than anywhere else. We won the United Nations Prize for that. And any other thing that would have had to do with housing, I would have felt very responsible for that. But we did what we could within the resources that we had. Of course, housing is a moving target. It will continue to be a problem for as long as we are a growing society. I was responsible for what? For
in fact, let's go to intelligence. I know I'm raising this because a few days ago, US alerted us that there could be a possible bomb, and our intelligence basically said they haven't picked up anything. Are you comfortable with the level of the intelligence that we have in the country at the moment? I know you can't share more because by its very nature, intelligence somehow it's secret.
I can say we have really let the country down with the current intelligence. It's just been going downward. When we came in, we had the best brains, the most committed people, and people who knew that intelligence is the heartbeat of the country. And I'm very proud I was in intelligence then. It remains one of my proudest moments. You know, to explain it, we put out an advert, because people didn't understand what we were doing. And we showed them a plane landing in the morning and then lights going on at night, to say, when you have a normal day, you must know behind the scenes, we make it possible. We, the intelligence community. We, the intelligence community, when I was there, were able to avert a coup that was run by Margaret Thatcher's son, together with a chap called Manning in Equatorial Guinea. Yes. I could go on and tell you of the successes of the intelligence community when I was there. It was, I look back on my life, and that is the proudest moment. I don't know what is happening now. I don't know what's happening now.
You know, Minister, I hear you very well. You have access to people who are running these institutions, and I think currently it's brought under the presidency, yes.
Well, that, I think, for me, if I were to express my view, I think that is the wrong way to do it. Okay. Because in intelligence, there is an acceptable idiom that says that talks about plausible deniability. Plausible deniability is you can allow the intelligence services to do whatever they want to do, and you would have reasonable explanation that I didn't know, you as the president, or you as the minister, or no, you as the president. In this particular case, when you fuse them, it's almost like fusing the CIA or the FBI into the office of the prime minister. He carries with him the liability. He cannot have any deniability. So purely from a theoretical perspective, I would not have advised the president to do that. But he has found it necessary, perhaps because of advice that he has been given, to bring it close to him. He cannot separate himself from the failures of the intelligence community. So when the CIA or whatever it is points out something that is happening in our country, and we don't know, it is in the president's office, and it should not be there.
Well, we don't have much time now, Minister, but you know, from my discussion with you, clearly we still need to have an even bigger session than this one, because I think there's a lot that we can share. But before we close, maybe let's just, because in 1.5 months we'll be at NASREC.
We will be at NASREC,
yes. And then we'll be speaking again.
Yes.
So in the event you are not elected, President Ramaphosa is not elected, I'm just counting some of the people that I know that have been nominated. I know that Dr. Mkhize has been nominated, and I think Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma and the Deputy President. Of these people, as a branch member, I'm not talking to the minister now.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to the NEC member now. I'm talking to an NEC member in good standing. So outside of, let's say, yourself, if the branches don't nominate you or don't elect you, or any of the people I'm mentioning, who would you back from this that I've mentioned?
Okay, so what you're asking me is what criteria would I use?
Yes.
Yes. The criteria I would use is the track record of the person in the ANC,
Okay.
the track record of that person in government. I would also use the track record of their honesty. We want a clean government. We're dying for a clean government. We don't want a situation where there is a pala and we don't know what to do. Because it paralyzes government, because we don't know as members of cabinet what to do. And we don't want our government to be painted with a brush that has nothing to do with the rest of what we've been doing and working on for so long. So I want a very clean person. I want a clean person. I want a clean person. I want somebody whose track record in the liberation struggle and in the ANC I can vouch for.
Okay. From the names I've mentioned, I'm putting you on the block.
You are putting me on the block, and I'm refusing to be drawn into that block.
And Minister, I said...
I've given you the criteria.
The criteria.
I've given you the criteria.
So,
it must be somebody with an absolutely clean record. It must be somebody who has contributed as much as we would have wanted them to contribute in the struggle, not association with the struggle, but in the struggle, so that they... Because I believe when you've created something, you deal with it with a particular passion.
Yeah.
I would like those people who created this situation for us to get home, to be part and parcel of the people who take us forward. So I want a full account of, have they given all their time to the ANC?
Doesn't matter whether it's a woman or a man?
Oh, I love women running. You know, the woman in Britain.
Yes.
The woman in Britain stayed a whole of 42 days.
44.
But do you know what she had? She had principle. She refused to toe a line that she felt was going to undermine both the party and herself. And she resigned. Only women would do that. These men, with their ego, I dare any of them to resign, because they would have long resigned by now, some of them. But don't draw me into that.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, let's end it there, Minister.
There, and you said we would continue.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the discussion we've had, and of course, I'm sure it's serving as the basis for further discussions.
It does. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. That was the Minister of Tourism, and of course, the ANC NEC member, the Lindiwe Sisulu. We have been having a conversation about a number of things. She's very passionate about what she feels should be done. And interestingly, her job is very interesting because she is a politician, and then they are doing their own review in December. Let's see if she will pass or fail.
Thank you very much. Zwandile Mbeje, our political editor, in conversation with Minister Lindiwe Sisulu. And she said it, you heard it there, that if it was up to her, basically she would want the president to step aside anybody facing serious claims. And she said that she would want pala to be cleared up. She has indicated she will run again if she passes the threshold. So saying she's in the game. Her name is in the hat if enough people support her. Interesting times ahead as we look ahead and we bring you the news ahead of that conference in December, the ANC's elective conference.